everybody, and welcome to my channel. My name is Debbie and I'm a mixed media artist, and today I'd like to do a special edition favourite 5. A favourite 5 was requested by one of you most emphatically last week, so I thought, well, let's do that. It's so easy to make people happy by just seeing if we can manage what they want and need, and I think that's very easy. Let's do a favourite 5. So this is a special edition in that it's not going to be the usual favourite 5 format where I choose 5 favourite colours from a particular material or tool. That I'll have more of those coming, but today I wanted to show you which are my favourite 5, maybe plus an honourable mention, materials for painting a blackbird. It's something that we have beautiful blackbirds in our garden and I love them. They've become my favourite bird, which is really surprising. I grew up in Australia surrounded by parrots and kookaburras and all sorts of things like that, and I live in Germany now, and my favourite bird is a dusty little blackish brown bird with the brightest eyes and the yellowest beak. You'd think, you know, with all those brightly coloured birds that I would never notice something as ordinary as a blackbird. And as my Patreons will know, and they're watching this as well, they get to see this first, blackbirds occur a lot in my work, and I just thought that it would be a good way to formalise my favourite materials for painting one. So before we get on with that, please leave a like, subscribe, and if you like what you see here, please do consider joining my Patreon. All of the details are in the description box below, plus a link that will get you there very quickly. My Patreon's taught in English, and when I say taught, it is a little bit different to the norm with Patreon. Some Patreons, you give somebody money and you see them rarely and they go off and do what they do and you support them, and that's absolutely lovely. I run mine a little bit differently in that I post 3 videos a week for your €10 a month or $10 a month. You get 3 videos a week, so 12 videos on the average month. Sometimes there's more because there's more sort of days in the month. So you get a whole lot of art lessons for your very low $10 or thereabouts, depending on which currency you're in. So it's a really lovely way to learn art, lovely way to level up your skills, or if you are curious about mixed media and what that might possibly be, everything is over there. And it's a nice community too. Very lovely people. My favourite people congregate on my community page, so I'd love you to join them. Right, all of that out the way, let's get on. So there are lots and lots of ways to paint a blackbird or any other thing that you can think of in the known universe. I have got some favourites, and I've developed favourites by practicing and doing things and finally coming up with what works particularly well. So although I love to paint them in gouache, I'm going to show you a watercolour one today, and open my watercolour palette here, which is as neat as it's ever going to get for me. This is good. I'm going to use a Winsor & Newton Mars Black, which if I grab my little swatch card here, that's that one there. It's a sort of a dusty browny black. You could argue that it's a very dark brown, actually, more than a black. And of course the Mars Black pencil, my very favourite one of those is Derwent Lightfast, and it's also very dark brown, almost black, and if you burnish over the top with white you get purple. So it's a lot of things to a lot of people, but to a blackbird it's perfect because they can be that dusty brown, especially the females. They are brown, and that's how you know that it's a female and not a male. The males are black. And yeah, so it starts with watercolor, and then we have some details. Now with mixed media there are layers, and each layer sometimes people will say I'm doing this without a plan. They're not really, because you have to think about what you're doing and which layer goes first. And I have made a whole video on this, which is in my, I'll try to remember to put a link on the screen for you, which is what you're supposed to do on YouTube. So it will be up here if I remember to if I get it right. Otherwise, it's in my video list. So, yeah, we're going to do it this way because there are layers and you do have to consider layers. So we do the first one first and then the next bit goes over the top of that and so on and so forth. So people who say they haven't got a plan, they actually probably have. They may not even realize it. I'm not suggesting they're lying. I'm just saying there is a plan, and people who work enough in mixed media, they know the plan automatically. Because, for example, you can't put down oil pastels as a first layer and then go over the top with watercolor or colored pencil. It just won't work, or it won't work well. So we're going to start with a watercolor bird. We're going to then do some detail. So the layer one is always going to be your big shapes. And for us, for a bird, it's going to be a big shape of a bird. We'll do some swatches first as per the tried and tested Favorite 5 format. But then what we do is we go in and we refine and detail. Those are the next two layers. So for that, I've got a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen. It's a food nib hard. It's black. It's Indian ink. So it's the blackest thing that you are going to see in the art world, really, is Indian ink. And it's perfect for painting those beady little bright eyes. Whilst on eyes, we've got a jelly roll pen. You can also use a small paintbrush and a bit of paint to put in a highlight. Always put highlights in your birds and animals' eyes, because without them, they're not alive. Living things have highlights. It's the way of the world. I can't change it. Don't make the highlight too big, because the highlight is dependent on how much of the bird's eye is sticking out of the socket, or humans or animals or whatever. And if it's got too large a highlight, it'll look mad. And when you see old-fashioned pictures of people with mad staring eyes, and so, you know, the eyes are really popping out of their head, the highlights are a lot larger because there's more of the eye's surface area attracting the light. So you'll make the bird look quite mad. So a little highlight proportionate to the size of the eyes. If you're painting a wren, it would be a lot smaller highlight than if you were painting an owl, for example. So there's that to think about. The next thing is, of course, each blackbird has a little gold ring around the eye. I'm going to use a Thule Art acrylic paint pen from the Earth set. This is number 22, and it's the 0.7mm one. If I can get a tune out of it. I haven't used this one for a while, so it may need a little bit of loving care before it comes back to life, but it will. So there's that one. And then I have a coloured pencil, it's a raw umber coloured pencil. It's Luminance by Caran d'Ache. And the reason why I like this colour is it fits beautifully with the dusty Mars black of the bird itself. Now, having said that, what I'm going to show you today is an easy blackbird, one hopes, all going well. And what this means is we're going to use watercolour, and we're going to give it plenty of water to swim in. This is not necessarily a granulating colour, but just about all watercolours will give you some texture. And we just let the texture do what it does, and that will paint our bird for us largely. Then we can come back in and we can put some more watercolour under the wing and so forth. I'll also use the coloured pencil to give the blackbird something to sit on, make a little branch for him to sit on. So yeah, let's start with some swatches. First of all, Mars Black. This Mars Black, let's wake it up a little bit with a bit of water. I should have done that before I started yapping. I really love this. It's, like I said, it's just that beautiful, rich, browny black, and if you add more water to it, it does pretty amazing things. Now, I'm using a Hannah Müller Nostalgia sketchbook. That's smooth page, and it's not necessarily designed for wet media, but being a high quality product, it will take what you throw at it. And I use pretty much this product exclusively now. There has been time in the past when I've had others, and I still do have those sketchbooks, but this is the range that I reach for the most. And here in Germany, it's well priced. I don't know what it's like where you are, but you know, this is the thing. The internet's a bit of a double-edged sword when it comes to art, because if I recommend something here from Germany and you're living somewhere else, it may be really quite expensive. So have a nose around and see what you can find. But this is a very nice sketchbook. As you can see here, like I said, it's not necessarily a granulating watercolor, but it is, because I've given it plenty of water to swim in and plenty of room, there is a little bit of a secondary color happening there. And that's what I love. This is my favorite Blackbird color. I did do a tutorial a short while ago on my Patreon about which browns and blacks were best for Blackbirds. We did a cute swatching session. Actually, it was really fun. I'm not normally a fan of swatching. This was huge fun, because what I did was I used a few browns and blacks that were favorites at the time and I made Blackbird shapes. So we had a Blackbird lesson as well. So my apologies to my patrons who are probably sick to death of Blackbirds. But yeah, this is it's my go-to comfort bird. So I'm having a medicinal Blackbird today. Right, so that is Mars Black. So the next thing is the coloured pencil. This is raw umber, like I said, and it goes very, very nicely with the Mars Black watercolour paint, because this is the colour that I'm seeing where we're getting this slight, let's call it a granulation, because that's what it's doing, even though it's not officially labelled. Like I said, it's really quite a nice little brown that you get in there, and it matches perfectly. So if any details are needed, like a little highlight or something like that, this is a really good pencil to have. It works particularly well. The next one is my Art acrylic marker. Like I said, it's a 0.7 millimeter, so it's actually quite fine. And this allows us to make the sort of fine details that are required on the Blackbird's face. Excuse me. Also for the beak, and it can be used in a few different ways on the beak. As an honourable mention, we might bring in this one here. Actually, I'm not even sure if this is the one I would bring in. Let's have a look. This is a number 3 from the yellows. Just giving it a shake there. You can hear the mixing ball, which is mixing all the acrylic paint in the marker. This one's probably a little bit light, if I'm honest. Let me just have a rummage, because it's very, very important that we get the honourable mention right. Shaking again. This one's number 5 from the yellows, and it's a bit darker. I think that's the one I would go for my honourable mention, because it's really quite nice to get a highlight on the beak, and sometimes you need it on the eye as well. Now, this here is the aforementioned acrylic ink, Indian ink marker. Again, quite fine, and you can do quite a nice little eye with that. And the good thing about it is sometimes, even though these markers are really, really fine, sometimes you need to refine what they do. We'll see that when it comes up. You'll see what I mean. And this is a really good way to do that. Finally, the highlight. I'm not going to swatch this one because you won't see much. This one's a size 8. It's a really good medium size. There's a 5 and a 10 as well. The 5 is sometimes difficult to get on with, and the 10 is a bit too thick for an eye highlight. The 8 is about right, and it's just a white. I got this in a pack of 3 with the 5 and the 10. You can also buy them open stock, and they're really worth having if you do any sort of wildlife portraiture or anything like that. We won't call this portraiture because it's not that sort of bird. You'll know it's a bird hopefully, but it's quite stylized. Now I'm going to go in sort of without a safety net. If you want to, you can draw a rudimentary shape, and I usually use a watercolor marker for that. Let's not go into the green by accident, which we did. Okay, so a bit of a head here for the bird, and then the body. Give it plenty of water, like I said. Give it something to swim in. That's a little bit weird, but we'll work it out. That bit shouldn't have happened. So a bit of a belly as well, and then into the tail. So then we can shape the wing around here, because they quite often overshoot the tail. Then there's a little bit underneath, and we just put the tail shape. So what you're after here, let's put another wing down there that we see from the back. Okay, and we'll do a bit better shaping here on the head and remove whatever the hell that was towards the beak here. And the legs, they can just come straight down from the body, and they will wrap around a branch, which I promise him will be here soon. And there are two legs together here because they're quite close. So just put the little toes there and you won't see the other one. Right, got a bird. Now, this is already doing things. So what I'm going to do is just leave it alone. That's probably the first thing that to do with painting that's important, is nothing. Don't fiddle. With proper granulating watercolours, you have to give them a few things. They prefer rough paper. Well, they're not going to get it because we need to put coloured pencil on here at some point. So therefore, we're not going to give him rough paper to sit on. And we're going to, and they need a lot of water to swim in. They need space to swim in. So, you know, doing tiny little things like my swatches here. If I can just grab this out, these here, for example, are the Schmincke super granulating watercolours. This paper's cheap, but it's got a bit of texture. Some of these have managed to granulate, but these haven't. Most of them prefer a bit more space, to be fair. They can't have any of that here. They've got a bit of space, but the smooth watercolour, you can still get them to granulate. But the main thing is, quite often with proper granulating watercolours, you can bully them a bit. So you can move them around and shove them here and there, and that will get the granulation going. With this one, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it alone. You could come in with a piece of wet, this one's slightly damp because I've been washing my brush on it. You can come in with a piece of paper and lift highlights out. That's a little bit too much of a sudden highlight, but if we make it a little bit more subtle without upsetting that other bit there, I'm just going to fill it back in again because I don't want it. I only did that to show, and it's not what I want. I do hope that that hasn't destroyed the rest of the integrity. So I'm going to leave it alone, like I'm preaching. Leave it alone. Let it do what it does, because then we can come back and do other things with our other bits and bobs. Now, whilst we're waiting for it to dry, it's a good idea to get some sort of a branch in. I'm going to use this coloured pencil that I've got here and put in a rudimentary branch. And here again, awfully sort of free form, but that's not to say I haven't got a plan. Use the pencil on its side. Now, to be fair, this video is not about the background, it's about the bird. So the 5 tools are for painting the bird. So we can get away with actually having some other bits and pieces here. Let us, in honour of our Blackbird, get a Derwent Lightfast Mars black pencil and just colour a little bit more on the branch, because we're not going to use that on the Blackbird. I will play fair, I promise. Very weird looking branch this, but it works. It'll be fine. You can also come in with another colour, and again, playing fair because this has nothing to do with the bird. Just going to put in some colour around the Blackbird, as in some context. This is just another watercolour. This one is my Holbein Olive Green, which is a favourite green. As you can see, you can go straight over some of these other things because that's watercolour, and the pencils will allow that. but I'm not going to touch the bird. Just go right quite close. I don't mind that there's a bit of a white halo, but if that bothers you, you can get rid of that. Right, what we need to do now is to dry everything. Make sure everything is super dry. Most important with mixed media, I've said it before and I'm certainly going to say it again, so brace yourself. If the layers are not working for you, as in I've put down some watercolour, I'm going to go over the top with other things, and those other things, insert things here, require the layers to be dry. If they're not dry, they won't work. So you'll see me use, and other mixed media artists, you'll see us using coloured pencil over the top of gouache, see us using coloured pencil and markers over the top of watercolour, and everything's making beautiful marks, and you sit there and you think, oh my God, that's so nice. It doesn't work for me. So what on earth are they doing? What we're doing is drying this perfectly. And what that means is if you're using a thicker watercolour paper or a thicker paper that's better quality, don't forget that the amount of water you've put on there will go into the paper. So the surface might feel dry, but it's still going to be wet inside. So what that means then is when the surface dries, that water's got to come out somewhere. This is just how physics works. And because we've got a nice surface area here, it's going to come up here, come out a little bit back at the back as well, but it'll come out the front and re-wet the surface. So what you think is dry may not be dry. So there's a couple of things you can do is, one, give it time. Make sure it's dry. Put it in a sunny window and go and make a cup of tea. Or you can dry it. I have a heat tool that I use for my card making, and you will have seen that before. It's just a Ranger heat tool. A hairdryer will do the same. I happen to have this, so I don't have to have, walk around the house looking for a hairdryer. So you can do that. You can feel it when it feels warm or room temperature, and room temperature will depend on where you live. This also all depends on how dry or humid it is. Here in Germany, it's very humid in the summer. We've got tropical weather in the summer. Whereas in Australia, where I grew up, it was a lot drier, and things would dry a lot quicker. The thing is, you feel it. If it feels warm or room temperature, it's almost certainly dry, especially if you know it's had a good hour sitting there. If it feels cool, it's not dry, and it means it's still going to have some moisture in the paper, right down in where you can't get to it. And the minute you think it's dry and you start, that moisture will start evaporating, which will re-wet the surface of your work, and the pencils won't work, the markers won't work. It's a disaster. So big thing there, let it dry. And you can, like I said, it doesn't matter if you dry it artificially. Mostly these tools don't really care, as long as it's dry before you come in with the next layer. So I'm going to put this Mars Black pencil aside in case I accidentally grab it and ruin my own rule of 5 things, because I've already got an honourable mention, so we can't have another one. I shall return in a second when this is dry, and we can go on and do the next bit. Right, see you very shortly. Right, that's nice and dry, and I'm holding the book shut because this paper, as I did mention before, is not really designed for the amount of water I throw at it. I mean, I'm not hosing it down or anything, but the water adds up and the paper does buckle a bit. It's the same as when I use pan pastels to do skies and things like that. I tend to fix my pictures with watercolour. Yeah, absolutely. With hairspray. And I've done it for over 40 years. But I know people will write in, please, I've done it for a long time. You can also choose a fixative that is more expensive and meant for that. It's your choice. But what it does is it will make the paper buckle slightly. So whilst it's warm from being dried, and I have dried it artificially, I just hold it shut while I blow more hot air over it, talking to you about it. It's smooth enough to work on. Right, so the next thing now is we get down to business. We make an eye, and the eye is going to go about here. So it's a little round beady eye. Then we're going to make a beak, and we're going to just let that come up a little bit into the area there. And don't worry about the watercolour behind it. You can sort of see it through the marker. I'm not very worried about that at all. And that's that. Again, I'm now waiting for that to dry, and whilst I am, I can redefine some of this. In fact, I could even go with my Mars Black watercolour and go over the top of the branch a bit. Just probably not quite that much. Block that. Because even though this is coloured pencil and it shouldn't work over the top, it sort of does. This is what I love about mixed media. You've got to know your products, and basically the easiest way to do it is that's where lessons come in. Get some lessons so you don't waste your time or your product, and find out how to use it. Yeah, that'll do. Just gives it a little bit more. You can still see the pencil marks under there, but it gives it a little bit extra. Now, we have got some choices here. We can define the wing a little bit. Again, you're not going to see much of this. You're not supposed to. I want the watercolour to do most of the work. Just put some pencil marks here, a little bit here, maybe here, just to define it. It's quite light. And bring one of these out. Can add a bit more to the breast here and the stomach. Pencil's also easier to deal with and easier to control than a paintbrush with paint on it. So we've got a couple of choices. Just let me show you that by holding it up a little bit to prove that I have actually made marks on there. They're supposed to be subtle, and they are. So what we can do here is we can go back with some paint and say go under the wing here. That's green, good grief. I've got to move those. If you do anything stupid like that, just take it off. That wasn't my second honourable mention. It was me getting the wrong watercolour. Black, Mars Black's what we want. So we can just give it a bit more definition under the wing here. I'm presuming the light's coming from this way, which is where it usually does with my things. And yeah, so I did make the breast a little bit lighter, and now I've gone back and made it darker just under the wing, leaving a bit of light there. Obviously, if you're doing this and you're not trying to keep it to 5 things, you could have a lighter pencil as well to just lighten some of the wing areas up. But like I said, I tend not to. I tend to try and let the watercolour do its job and leave this to be as light as possible and as subtle as possible. Right, the next thing now is to have a look at that eye and the beak. Now that it's dry, put a little bit of a nose in and then divide the beak up and use the pencil to blend the end of the beak into the face. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change my honourable mention just to show you what I was talking about. So I'm not going to use the lighter, the one of these. It's so hard trying to keep this fair. I'm going to choose a lighter colour of coloured pencil instead. I'm going to go with light sienna and show you what else you can do here. Is you can make some of these little winglets stand out a bit more by highlighting them. So you've got that choice. A little bit there, a little bit on the tail here, sometimes a little bit down the top. And one great thing about these pencils, because they're either wax or oil-based, is you can blend them a bit with your finger, because the warmth of your finger is just enough to blend them. Okay, so there's option number 2. You can also use that on the top of this. So it's actually much more useful than the silly yellow marker. So we're going to do that. Right, next thing now is to come with the jelly pen. Now, as I mentioned before, sometimes these acrylic markers, even though it's quite fine, it can be a little bit clunky. This marker, sorry. It's one of those days. It's Friday. That's what, yeah. Sometimes these markers can be a little bit clunky, and sometimes they'll squirt out a bit more paint than you want them to do. They do a brilliant job overall, but they're not perfect. Nothing is. What you've got to do is to work out how to fix the problem. This is how you fix a lot of problems. So, for example, if you don't like that bit there, you can take it away. Neaten that bit of the eye up. It's plastic surgery for birds. Make the eye a nice sharp black. You can also add a bit of a nostril, very lightly split the beak up there. If you don't like that bit there, this takes it away. It goes over most things, but above all, it goes over the acrylic marker, and you can neaten your eye up. So not only are you going to paint the pupil from the inside, you can neaten the eye up from the outside as well. Good to know, because sometimes you put it down and you think, oh my God, that's woeful. It's ruined the whole painting. The painting was brilliant, you know, up till now. Leonardo da Vinci was looking down and actually feeling jealousy. And now look what I've gone and done. So it's really good. We can't avoid mistakes. We're human. Almost. Most of us are human. We make mistakes. The only difference between a successful thing and a bit of a mistake that you hope no one ever finds out about is your ability to fix the problem. What can we do about it? Do we just sit here and say, oh, well, that's that then? Or do we say, right, no, wait a second, I need this and that and what have you? Yeah, that's right, Daisy. Of course, my Cocker Spaniel knows more about art than I do. In future, I suggest you tune into her channel. Daisy, shut up. Right, the look I'm getting. While I've got this in my hand, you can also use this to further neaten up and add any little branches to what he's sitting on. And as you'll notice, when you press a bit harder, you get a thicker line with these. That's why I like them. And then quite light for these others. You can also use a dip pen for this. I have done in the past, and I enjoy doing that too. So as you can see here, thick, press a bit harder. Same pen. It's good value for money when that happens. Yeah, I use my dip pens when I want a choice of inks, but if I'm just wanting black ink and I'm running out of India ink, which I am at the moment, then I'll just use one of these, and these are fabulous. It's the same product, but it's a different delivery system. And you'll also notice that I'm only going on the underside of the branch because this is the side that it's away from the light. Okay, so we come in and we can add a bit of a line under there to define it, and then whilst we're doing it, we add some smaller branches. This looks like if it wants to be a branch, and then we come around here, press harder, and then out like so. That's no good. It looks awful. So we, again, mistake, learn how to fix it. Just come in and we fix it, and we can come in under here. And whilst we're at it, we can define the inside of his toes and the legs. You can also define here a little bit if you need to. Here's another branch. Let's join that to something because branches don't usually hover. And add a bit to it like so. This one might be coming out this way. This is all in my head, so it can do anything at all. Let's leave it at that and not overcomplicate things. So whilst we've been fiddling around with all of that, now we can come to this one. This one is my highlighting pen. So first, the first thing to do with your eye is to find out where the light source is coming from. If it's a single light source, it'll only have one highlight. If you're standing in a television studio with 54 lights, then it's got 54 highlights. Now, obviously, that's not workable. But every light source will create its own highlight. You don't need to put all of them in. It would look ridiculous. Humans would just have white, blanked out eyes. It's really, this is why lighting a person on television is actually quite a skill. But we're talking about a bird. We're talking about a bird in a tree. So let's go with the obvious here. Let's do the Occam's razor thing and look for the very obvious. He's outside being lit by the sun, one light source. So then all you have to decide is, where's the light source coming from? My usual light source comes from the top left, especially if it's the sun. It's not going to be coming from underneath, so we can rule that out. So we've only got these areas over the top of the painting. Where is the light source coming from? I like it from this side, so therefore my highlight will be here. So with the gel pen, you'll see them come to life now. I just do a few little dabs and we have a live bird now. If it was midday, for example, you could have the light coming from the top and it'll be more in the middle. If it's towards the afternoon, it might be coming this way. Or if the tree is angled the other way, it might be coming the other way. So the direction of the sun will have two factors, either the time of day or where the tree is that he's sitting in. As if it's on the other side of the park, for example, or the other side of the garden, it'll have the light will be coming from the different direction. So basically you pick the direction of your light when you again, this is part of the plan that people say they don't have. You pick the direction of the light and you stick to it. So we've got a bit of a highlight here from our raw sienna pencil, light sienna, sorry, pencil. So that's where that light's coming from. This has to agree with it. So if we've got all this highlighted, but the highlight on the eye is on this side, it just doesn't look believable and your brain won't accept it. And sometimes when people do a picture and you think, it's great, everything's in the right place, but something's not right. These are the details that matter, because we're now onto the detailing sort of layer. These are the details that matter. So you have to make sure that everything agrees, and you make sure that everything agrees by deciding early on and sticking to it. So the highlight here, the bird light travels in straight lines. So the highlight from the sun comes this way. It is going to hit the back of the bird. It's going to hit the top of the branch, which is why we did the black on this side, and it's going to have our highlight here. Sometimes I do the highlight a couple of times because these markers or these pens don't always work first time. Sometimes you've got to build up the color, so just do it again until you're happy with it. Pretty happy with that. So when I say the light travels in straight lines, it'll come here, hit the bird here but not here, even though this was a bit lighter. That's different, that's lighter feathers. The bird is in the way, so it should ideally cast a shadow, because the light can't travel around the bird, has to be in a straight line. And if you follow those sort of simple rules, you won't go far wrong. I'm also considering I threw out one honourable mention. No, you're not going to play ball. I'm just going to highlight the top of the beak, because that will also be slightly lighter. So now I don't have to do anything at all to the bottom of the beak, because the light on the top has made the bottom look automatically darker. Lastly, I'm going to put some little bands of white on his legs, because birds' legs are pretty scaly, and you know, if I was a blackbird, I wouldn't wear a mini skirt very often. Because they've got scaly little legs and scaly little feet. And the way I show that, I'll lift it up and show you in a second, is I use my gel pen to make horizontal marks on the feet and legs. You can also come back with the food nib here and put a decent claw on, which might be wrapping around here. You don't have to make a big thing of that because you can't see it very well. Let me just hold that up. Can you see the legs now? They've got a sort of texture, and it's a scalier sort of texture. So where the scales, I'll call them scales for want of a better word, where those little bits and pieces on the legs fit together, a bit of it will be highlighted slightly, and I show that by a horizontal mark going crossways across the leg. You can also come back on the light side and do a long one over the top, and the same on here. What that does is it elongates the leg, and it also softens the sideways scaly bits. So that's sort of how I would do that. So just discovered in my drawer this morning something that I bought my very self. I know I bought it. I remember doing it, but I've not used it. It's a Pebeo Colorex marker in olive green. And what I thought I would do is just have a bit of a play here. Again, it's another sort of non-light fast watercolor system, just a different delivery method. But just adding a bit of, probably add some leaves. I like to blend and do things with my fingers too. They're the art material you've always got with you. And also, if you want to, you can get rid of some of the white halo. If you've got one of those and you don't like it, you can sort of get in a bit closer and control some of these mediums a bit better. Careful about rubbing on any paper, especially these smooth papers, because if you're getting pilling, you've already done damage. Just so as you can see, you can make a bit of a motley background, get rid of some of this. You've got to work quite quickly, because otherwise it'll dry, won't go anywhere. And I've also noticed, again, let's fix a problem. I've just gone over the beak. Let me just put the beak back in again. And we keep doing this until it's finished and not actually ruined. So yeah, these are, it's quite nice. I love the colour in particular. I've got this real thing about greens, and I'm extremely finicky about which greens I like, and I like these. Famously don't like some of the grassy greens. I've got a Blackbird video coming up for you, another one, which is using the Caran d'Ache Neocolor Lush set to do a background with this time. And there are a couple of greens in there that I whinge about constantly. So that'll come up soon. You'll see the whinge. Right. So all of these background things aside, because they're not what we're talking about today, what you need to paint a Blackbird is the following. You will need your watercolor. You need a nice fine Indian ink black marker that you can do a few things with, because as you can see, versatility. We've got it for the branches, we've got it for the legs, we've neatened other things up, painted the eye, put the beak details in, all sorts. Some sort of coloured pencils. I've gone for a Caran d'Ache Raw Umber, which is very, very subtle on purpose. And if you want to highlight a bit more on the Mars Black watercolour, which was a Winsor & Newton, by the way, is Light Sienna. It's a very, very good one for that. It just gives a little bit of movement without making a big thing out of it. And this one is my honourable mention now, I think. No, this one can be the honourable mention. What the hell? It's 6 things today. So, favourite 6. And you'll notice that this has got to have another little lot over it, because that Pebeo marker is coming through the acrylic, and that happens a lot. Don't worry about it. It is fine to keep layering a colour. So you look at your picture and you see, oh, you know, I can see that colour coming through, because although it's watercolour ink, it's not going to be light fast, but it'll still bleed through just about everything. Sometimes you'll have to do it 3 or 4 times. That's how it is. You do it 3 or 4 times. It's fine. It happens sometimes, and it doesn't worry me. You can leave it too and use it as a shadow if it suits, but I don't want that. I want this little beak to be quite bright, so I will keep going over the top until I can't see the green ink. And that's sort of just how you fix a mistake. I think my favourite thing out of all of these things, apart from that beautiful Mars Black watercolour, my favourite tool has got to be, this is the winner. It is such a useful pen. And because it's India ink, it'll go over things. It goes over the acrylic. It goes over everything else, and you can correct things. So if you've made a mistake somewhere on the black bit or the brown branch or something like that, this will get you out of trouble. It's a first aid for medicinal blackbirds. And if you're not on my Patreon, the medicinal blackbird is, I paint so many that I put myself on a blackbird ban for a few weeks, because I thought people are going to be so sick and tired of blackbirds, but they weren't. So we've agreed that I can have a medicinal blackbird from time to time. And it has been a stressful fortnight. Our house is on the market and everything else. It's just all over the place at the moment. So a medicinal blackbird was very much in order. Right, I shall shut up and let you get on. Blackbirds are fun to do. The great thing about them is because they're a solid coloured bird, you only need a few things to paint one with. And I can't think of many pictures where they don't suit. I mean, obviously, if you're painting a picture of your kitchen, it would be an unusual thing to have a live blackbird in it. Not judging, it happens. But mostly if you're a landscape artist, try putting a blackbird into your work and see how it lifts the whole thing. They're such jolly little birds and they are so happy. They make everything better, in my opinion. So yeah, medicinal blackbirds. That's what we all need. Take 2 per day. Right, I shall leave you on that note and go and get some more coffee. Sounds like I need it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to join my Patreon. I would love to see you there, and you can learn a lot more about this sort of thing and how to do mixed media, what to do, use where, and things like that. So I shall bid you a fond adieu and see you next week. Bye for now. Bye.